I'm Richard Seefeld, and here's a little bit about me. I'm 32 now, but I came to Christ at the age of 19. I met some Christian students at my college, and through some studies, they led me to the Lord. And I wanted to know, what does Jesus want to do with my life? So I started searching, and I started helping out at church, and through that, felt the call to ministry. So I took over our preschool class and started teaching that, and then they trained me to be our kids' church director, where I got to help our leaders run that preschool class and do small groups. But that's not all I wanted to do. I wanted to help with students. I had a pretty rough teenage life, and I wished I had had Jesus with me to bring me through that and to change me. And so I went to college to get a youth ministry degree. And after that, I went to Arizona and became a youth pastor as a volunteer for 3 years. And I took this little church with 3 students up to 20. And here's how I taught. I wanted to make everything biblical in our teaching. So I would write sermons and try to focus on what the text actually says, doing exegesis instead of eisegesis. But I also wanted to make it relevant to the students. So I'm using examples from my life to relate to them, examples from history, examples from what happens in this world, and examples of things that might happen with them in order to relate it to them and help them understand the application. And then I want my youth groups to be able to go out and reach other students. I don't think your youth group is going to grow if you want it to have more numbers, at least, unless your students have a burden to see their friends come to Christ. So I want them to know, hey, let's be telling people about Jesus. And all of that, I also have a model of my philosophy, which is that we need to have a focus on incarnationality, which is basically a fancy way of saying Jesus is our example. His humanity is our example, and he is our guide through everything. So we understand who we are as humans through Jesus. The other is relationality. We want to have relationships with our students. We want to get to know them. We want them to realize that we care about them, not just on Wednesday nights or whenever our youth group is, but through their lives, whether it's attending events or just helping them out with what's going on in their lives. And then the last one's identity. There are so many identities that are pushed in this world. And an identity of Christ is what's really important. So I want to show students what is the difference between having an identity in Jesus and having an identity in the world, and how can we shove off those things that keep getting pushed on us. Overall, I've had a few great wins in that ministry. One was obviously being able to take it into a bigger context. And the second one was being able to help parents, because I think parents should be integrated in the youth group. One parent was asking me about a group his kid joined. She ended up joining a furry group in their school, and he asked me what I thought about it. And I told him. I told him it wasn't a good thing and that it would lead his daughter astray. And so he told me he was going to go talk to the other parents and work on that. And he was able to get his kid out of that. And he really was thankful that I was willing to talk to him and help him with that. Here's where I had a problem, though. I had a student that I loved very much who I wanted to reach for the Lord, but he didn't care for knowing the Lord. And that's not exactly bad, but he started hurting other students, convinced them that other students were the problem, caused a bunch of drama, and left and brought a bunch of other students with him. So I went from that 20 down to 5 to 10. And that was really sad. That's something I'm hoping in the future by having better conversations and paying attention to my students' actions in the youth. Overall, I really hope to hear back from you all. I'm excited to possibly be in this context. I grew up in a rural area where there were just a lot of people from everywhere. I grew up on a farm, and I love the kind of places that this Iowa church has. So, hoping to hear back from you soon.